If you would stand with us, please. Commissioner Charlotte P. will lead us in our prayer and our pledge.
Dear Lord, thank you for this day and this opportunity for us to serve our county. Thank you for this season where you sent your son for us. Help us to have a wonderful holiday. Help us to make good decisions. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Call the roll, please, Gail.
Trying.
Rhonda Allen. Here. Jim Aberwater. Here. Lee Bogle. Here. Will Jordan. Here. Mike Cush. Craig Lynch. Here. Chip Pinion. Here. Charlotte P. Here. Mike Vaught. Jeff Phillips.
Present.
Jones. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Gail. We have no minutes to approve, but we have one bit of business that's not on our agenda. Veronica, would you come up here, please, dear? Those of us that sit on this planning commission, this board, recognize this face and have for a number of years. Those of you that are here for the first time or for one of a few times might not, but this is Veronica Buchanan. She is rotating off of this planning commission board after serving Rutherford County for 8 years. And it's been a pleasure working with Veronica, but more than that, it's been fun just to get to know her and to be able to call her a friend. So Veronica's life has gotten overly busy. She also serves on the BZA, and she's going to continue that service, but some other things have stretched her a little bit thin, so she's rotating off of this board. And on behalf of this board, on behalf of the Planning Commission staff, we wish you nothing but future success, and thank you for everything that you've done for this board and for the citizens of Rutherford County. Thank you, Veronica. We have this, what else do you do but give a plaque? So we've got a plaque, but thank you for your service. We appreciate you.
It was an honor and a privilege to do what I love to do, serve others. Thank you for the opportunity, Rutherford County, and I promise you, you're going to keep seeing me doing something within this great place that we live in. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica.
Thanks again.
We appreciate you. When something old passes on, something new comes aboard. So David, if you would come up here, let everybody see the front of your face instead of the back of your head. David is rotating onto the board, and he is our newest planning commissioner. He is probably no stranger to most of us. David retired recently after 28 years of service to the county of Rutherford, and we welcome him to this board. He can fit right in and won't have a lot of catching up to do, and we look very much forward to working with David in the future. Anything you want to say?
No, sir.
Go to work, David. We have a lengthy agenda tonight, so we'll get busy. Item 5, under items that are withdrawn or deferred. On your agenda, item number 6B6, item number 16-2080, Peter Baltimore Estates has been withdrawn. Speaking of item 6, under new business, item 6A, waiver request, item number 16-4010, Jared Smotherman, a fire hydrant waiver for property located along Short Creek Road.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and good evening, Commission members. Excuse me, as Mr. Phillips stated, and forgive me, my voice, I don't know how long it's going to last tonight, I'll just be honest with you. The subject property is located along Short Creek Road. The applicant desires to divide about an acre of land off of the parent tract, which is about 63 acres in size, in order to construct a house. Property subdivisions, of course, of less than 5 acres do require conformance with our county subdivision regulations. The applicant has received a letter from Consolidated Utility District regarding the water line on Short Creek Road, that it cannot support a hydrant. That letter is attached with your agenda packets. For this reason, the applicant is asking for a waiver to the fire hydrant provision. If the waiver is granted, then the applicant will need to prepare a subdivision plat for the lot. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Motion and a second to approve item number 16-4010. Any other questions? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 6A2, 16-4011, Keith K. Wood, fire hydrant waiver for property located along Ashbury Road. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This property probably looks familiar to some of the commissioners. The Planning Commission originally approved a preliminary plan for this property, which was entitled Asbury Road Development, back in April of last year. The development was for 13 lots and was going to access sanitary sewer from the city of Murfreesboro. Following that approval, the applicant's plan for the property changed, and he proposed to construct 3 lots on the property, each having its own road frontage. At that time, he asked for a waiver to the fire hydrant requirement so he would not have to extend a water line near Horde Road to serve those lots and that was brought to the Planning Commission back in December of 2015. That request ultimately was denied. We felt he should have extended the water line. The Planning Commission agreed with that, so they denied the request. The applicant's now asking for the ability to split one tract of land, about 1.25 acres from the parent tract, which is about 19 acres in size. There we go. He's also asking for a fire hydrant waiver for just this one lot, and the soil site that he's identified will actually be off-site, so he's asking for an off-site soils waiver to that as well. The applicant's description has also been included with your agenda materials. I didn't see him when I walked in, but that doesn't mean he's not here. He is here, okay. So we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Staff have a recommendation?
This is better than it was as far as being multiple lots. I feel more comfortable with it than I did beyond that.
Doug, is this, I'm not trying to accuse anybody of anything, but we turned down a 3-lot deal. Could this just be, come back, do this, come back in 6 months, do another, come back in 6 months, do another one, be exactly what we turned down last time?
He could, I mean, obviously he would have the ability to try that. Quite frankly, if he comes back with another lot, I'm just going to tell him, you're going to have to build the line, because we've run into this situation in the past, not with him, but with another property I'm thinking about, that it could have ended up something similar. And, you know, we basically told them the same thing, you know, our eyes are open and we know what you might be trying to do. But in this situation, it looks like, based on his description that he's given us in the agenda packets, that this is kind of the family where he was selling the properties. I understand it, and he can certainly correct me if I'm wrong. When they originally proposed the first subdivision, the 13-lot subdivision, they came back kind of after the fact and said, well, we decided we really don't want that many neighbors in this area, so they cut it down to about 3, and then I think then that was denied. And so with all the work he's put into it, basically at this point they just said, well, we'll give you the 1 1.25 acre for your troubles, essentially. But again, the applicant can certainly provide more detail of that. That's a long way of saying, could he try it? Yes, but we're watching.
Are you satisfied?
As far as, like I said, I'm more comfortable with just the 1 lot, because this isn't a whole lot different than a lot of the other ones that we've seen.
Make motion approved.
Motion and a second to approve. Any other comments or questions? Mr. K. Wood, you don't have to come up, but if you would stand up and give us your intention. Are you committing that this will be what you want and not anything else?
Very good friends, got friends with the owners, and have a gentleman agreement, and it's all on the system that helps the engineering process.
Thank you. Any other questions? All those in favor of the motion to approve item number 16-4011, please say aye. Any opposition? The motion carries. Thank you. 6B, submitted for final plat approval. 6B1, item number 16-2013, Foxfire Meadows, Section 10, and the re-subdivision of Lot 287 of Section 9. This is a reapproval. As I said, 49 lots, 47 of which are buildable on 28.8 acres zoned RM, located along Precept Drive, east of Baker Road. Jones Construction Company is the applicant. Doug.
Yes, sir, thank you. As you stated, this final plat is a reapproval. This was originally approved by the Planning Commission back in March of this year. Final plat approvals are only valid for 6 months unless the final plat is recorded. This has not been recorded, so they have resubmitted for approval. As far as the lot layout and the street layout, nothing has changed in this subdivision. We did have several comments that we asked them to address. They were all fairly straightforward things. A couple of outstanding items. Mike, do you want to go ahead? Okay. Just a couple items under the engineering comments. They just need to provide the datum that they provided for the benchmark as far as the elevation. Everything just needs to be revised a little bit. Also, they need to label the reasoning for the minimum pad and minimum floor elevations on the plat, just to provide a little more information on that. They have them there and they're correct. It's just they need to provide a little more information on them. And then they need to add a note regarding drainage easement improvements. Other than that, this plat's in good order and we recommend approval.
Motion and a second to approve item number 16-2043. Any other questions? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye. Any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. Item number B2, Chapel Hills, Section 9, revisions. Item number 16-2043, 9 lots on 5.63 acres zoned RM, located at the intersection of West Jefferson Pike and Powell's Chapel Road. Doug?
Yes, sir, thank you. This final plat was also originally approved by the Planning Commission back in July of this year, but it was approved as a 7-lot subdivision. Since that time, the applicant has done some more work on the soils and has determined that the land can accommodate an additional 2 lots. So they're asking for reapproval of this plat with the 9 lots as opposed to 7. For the most part, this plat is in good order. Just a couple of minor comments that they need to address. One of the utility certifications, they're referencing the right subdivision, but they've got the section number incorrect, so they need to fix that. The purpose note that they included had the number of lots at 6, and it's 9, so they need to fix that. And then looks like they did label the size of the water lines. We asked them to do that, but the thickness of the text that they're using is such that it's hard to read, so we've just asked them to adjust that. Other than that, again, we recommend approval. This plat's in good order besides those comments.
Thank you, Jim. Have a motion and a second to approve item number 16-2043. All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye. Any opposition? That motion carries. Thank you. Item 6.3, number 16-2075, Richmond's Retreat, Section 3, 18 lots on 5.6 acres zoned RM with a previously approved conditional use permit for a planned residential development located along Shelbyville Highway. KW Group is the applicant. Doug?
Yes, sir, thank you. This preliminary plan for this development was approved by the Planning Commission back in March of this year. This final plat is consistent with that preliminary approval. We did have several comments that we've asked them to address. They have addressed them all, and this plat is in good order. We recommend approval.
Make a motion to approve, subject to staff comments.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 16-2075. All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye. Any opposition? That motion carries. Thank you. 6B4, item number 16-2076, Muirwood, Section 5, 25 lots on 6.6 acres zoned RM with a previously approved conditional use permit for planned residential development located along Rooker Lane. Tennessee Contractors, Inc. is the applicant. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. The preliminary plan for this development was approved by the Planning Commission back in July of this year. Again, this final plat is consistent with that preliminary approval. Since this is on sanitary sewer with the City of Murfreesboro, it will require Murfreesboro Planning Commission approval. They do have it. I don't think it's gone through their process yet, but I know it's been submitted to them. Besides some housekeeping issues, we had several items that we asked them to address. They have addressed those, and this plat appears to be in good order, so we'd recommend approval.
Make a motion to approve, subject to all staff comments.
We have a motion and a second to approve item number 16-2076. All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye. Any opposition? That motion carries. 6B5, item number 16-2079, Chestnut Valley, Section 1, Phase 2, 55 lots, 53 are billable on 27.84 acres zoned RM located along East Jefferson Pike. Waldron Enterprises is the applicant. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This preliminary plat was originally approved by the Planning Commission back in June of 2006. A final plat based on this original preliminary approval was recorded, which was Section 1, Phase 1, and that was recorded back in July of 2007. So this preliminary plat is locked in, and it doesn't require any kind of a reapproval, even though this is the second phase to that, and it's been quite some time since we've seen anything on this subdivision. This final plat is consistent with that preliminary approval. After discussions with staff, they have made some modifications to the drainage on the property. We had several comments for them to address, most of them housekeeping in nature. They have made those changes, and the plat appears to be in good order, and we'd recommend approval.
Doug, you said they made the modification to the detention pond. Was that even a requirement, or is that something they did just trying to be, that's something we could have even held them to?
No, sir. They did have to make changes in the Phase 2 section, the one that we're approving now, but they did go back and modify the existing detention pond near the road.
I was just trying to throw a attaboy at them right there, because apparently
They did an attaboy,
they're
yeah.
going above and beyond to try and meet the right requirements.
Sure.
And with that, I'll make a motion to approve, subject to all staff comments.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 16-2079. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 6B6 has been withdrawn. Item 6C, submitted for site plan approval. 6C1, item number 15-3021, Bill Rice Ranch School Edition. This is for revisions. New construction of 3,548 square feet of educational space on 4.76 acres zoned AR located along Bill Rice Ranch Road. Bill Rice Ranch is the applicant for building enlargement.
Thank you. This site plan was originally approved by the Planning Commission back in August of 2015. The original approval was for a storage space with the eventual use to be additional classroom space for the existing school building on the property. So that was always the intent of the building. They were just going to build it as storage to begin with and then convert it. Well, that conversion happened a lot faster, I think, than even they anticipated. So they have made that addition. The issue we ran into is the size of the building is slightly larger than what was approved on the site plan. It's 3,548 square feet versus 3,240 as originally approved. We are allowed to administratively approve increases in floor area that are less than 5%. However, this is just outside of that. It's greater than 5%. So that's considered a substantial deviation and does require reapproval by the Planning Commission. Really, most of the comments that we had have been addressed. We did ask them to add some additional information on one of the extensions of the storm pipes that they have on the plan. They need to add it to the chart as pipe C. Beyond that, everything else that we asked for them to do was changed. Well, actually, there is one. They just need to better clarify which sidewalks are proposed and those that are existing. We think we can tell by looking at it, but the hatching just needs to be better identified. So with that, we recommend approval.
Make a motion to approve, subject to staff comments.
Have a motion to approve and a second. Item number 15-3021. All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye. Any opposition? That motion carries. Thank you. Item 6C2, 15-3024, Central Valley Parking and Storage Revisions, new construction of 37,100 square feet of general personal services space, which are mini storage on 6 acres, zone CS, located along Leanna Central Valley Road. Chris Oliver is the applicant.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This is another plan that will look familiar to the Planning Commission. We've had several on here tonight. The site plan for this development excuse me, was originally approved by the Commission back at their February 2016 meeting. The original applicant is no longer pursuing this development, so the new applicant has made several changes to the original design and is seeking reapproval of the site plan. Something that is a little different from this one than from the first submittal is that they're only seeking approval of phase 1 at this time. Future phases will also require a future site plan approval. We had some concerns about the buffering on the plan. I think we've worked through those. The buffer areas were being shown in detention, or drainage areas rather, drainage ditches. Again, after speaking with our engineering staff, we think we've got that under control. As far as the other comments on here, really most of the comments were addressed. We don't really have anything outstanding. There are a few items that are on there that we know are going to be future items, especially from an engineering standpoint, but for right now, everything seems to be to conformance to our regulations on the site plan, and we'd recommend approval with that.
Motion to approve, subject to all staff comments.
Motion to approve and a second. Item number 15-3024. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Any opposition? That motion carries. Thank you. 6D, rezoning requests that are scheduled for a public hearing. 6D1, item number 16-A018, Burke Shelton. Location is 10596 Rockville Road. Commission district is 8. The county commissioner is Pettis Reed. Size of the site is approximately 3 acres. Tax map 146. Existing zoning is RM, which is residential medium density. Proposed zoning is CS, which is commercial services. Doug.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you stated, this particular application was considered by the Planning Commission at last month's meeting. It was ultimately deferred. Just for a way of review, the applicant currently operates a landscape business on Thompson Road. After receiving a notice for a violation at that location, he began the process of identifying a new location for the business. He purchased the subject property and requesting a rezoning to establish his business at this location. Prior to his requesting this change, the applicant did obtain a building permit back in October of last year to construct a pole barn. After receiving a complaint about the possible use of this new structure, building codes went to inspect the building. The inspection showed that there was a large amount of interior work that had been done, including plumbing, HVAC, et cetera. There were no permits at that point, so building codes put a stop work order on the building until proper zoning approvals were obtained. According to this information that he submitted, he's been operating in Rutherford County for about 10 years. He employs about 20 people. Property would be used for the storage and maintenance of equipment along with his office work. Hours of operation would be Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. with some occasional Saturday hours. Additional information and a concept plan can be found in your agenda materials. I will say that as we were walking into the meeting today, he distributed a copy of an engineered concept plan. There's copies kind of strewn about the tables for y'all to look at. They had 6 copies, so we just did the best we could with what we had. But, and you can see by looking at that, thank you, that the existing building on the front of the property would serve as an office. Of course, he's got he's showing the existing building where equipment storage, he shows the area where parking and everything is going to be, and then an area for truck parking in the back, water quality protection area, detention pond. Again, this is conceptual. Where the commercial services zoning is something we can hold him to, but this is kind of the direction that he wants to go with this. Several people spoke during the public hearing at last month's Planning Commission meeting. Copies of those materials that were submitted to staff for distribution have been included with your agenda materials. I've scanned them in. I believe there's some additional materials in front of you today as well. After considering the concerns from those who spoke, the Commission again moved to defer this application to allow the applicant to pursue a possible plan development application. After discussing it with staff, the applicant decided to move forward with his commercial services request. He said he was working with a local engineering firm. Again, the concept plan is as a result of that. And again, I did advise that although he's presenting this plan, it's nothing that we could lock him into because, again, this is not any kind of a plan development. So that just kind of gives you just a quick overview of this application. Again, the original materials were scanned and they should be included with your agenda packets on your iPads. There was also a packet, which I want to say is probably similar to what was already submitted, that should be in front of you today as well. And I received an email a little earlier today that I printed out. Looks like it was from Ms. Karen Brown. I did print that email out and presented it on your tables as well. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have, and the applicant is present.
Questions for staff? Get this straight, Doug. We deferred this from November to give the applicant a chance to consider some type of a planned unit development and chose not to and is pursuing the commercial services.
Correct. And I think he can probably give you a little more information on the reasoning if you'd like to hear from him.
Any questions for staff? Any comments?
Doug, if in the event this were rezoned, it would still have to come before a final site plan approval that would show the landscaping and that sort of thing?
Yes. Now,
and at that time, that gets locked in.
Right. I mean, at this point, again, this is conceptual. He would be required to submit a site plan for us to review. Now, if it's just parking and landscaping that he's adding, it's probably not going to have to come before the Planning Commission. It's probably something we could do from a staff level. But to answer your question, yes, it would have to have a site plan submitted.
Other questions?
Doug, if this is rezoned, what can go in this zone besides a landscaping business?
In the zoning ordinance, it identifies a number of other uses that can be there. General retail is permitted. I mean, if you want, I can pull out the chart and kind of run through some of them. But it's not the most wide open of the commercial zones that we have. We've got commercial neighborhood, commercial services, and commercial general. Commercial services is kind of the middle of the road. It's commercial neighborhoods more your neighborhood-friendly type uses. Retail less than 5,000 square feet. Commercial services does allow for larger retail uses. Commercial general is kind of more your wide open commercial zone, so it's not quite as wide open as that.
Like in your comments, you said that about 800 feet away, there is some non-residential zoning. What is that zoning?
It's commercial neighborhood, CN.
What's the business? Do you know?
Off the top of my head, I'm not exactly sure what the business is. I apologize, but
was there any reason? Did you give them any guidance in choosing commercial services over commercial neighborhood?
Well, this would fall under construction sales and service, which is a contractor's office, which is permitted in commercial services, but not commercial neighborhood. So yes, I did.
Not even under special exception?
No. I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure it's not. No, it's just not permitted in commercial neighborhood.
Questions for staff?
Doug, is the soil site acceptable for 10 more, 12 more workers?
I'm sorry? Well, the original soul site on the property, of course, I think the building may be located in portion of that. He had to relocate his field lines, which I think he did actually prior before building the building. Now, regardless of that, if he turns out, even if he gets rezoned, it turns out he can't support what he's doing, he's not going to get an occupancy permit. So it's not a requirement as far as rezoning is concerned, but it is something that, he should have looked at prior to doing what has been done.
Any other questions for staff? If not, we're ready for our public hearing. At this time, I'll declare a public hearing open for item number 16-A018, Burke Shelton. We'll hear from the applicant first and get an update from the applicant as to what is going on there and what's different now than from last month. So is Mr. Shelton available?
Good evening, everyone. Burke Skelton, Outdoors Unlimited. We are the applicant for this commercial zoning petition. And again, we had worked with Doug and the Planning Commission after finding out about getting that we were not falling under the agricultural zoning any longer, or maybe ever. Maybe we were misunderstood. In the zoning ordinance, it does clearly state horticultural services under agricultural, and we are a horticultural services company. Now, we do not have a retail area, don't plan to, never will. I ran a nursery before, I won't do it again. We don't have customers come to our job site. To your question about the accepting more, will it handle more employees? Our employee, we don't run a factory there. We have 2, maybe 3 people there in and out during the day, office manager, mechanic, and maybe myself. A lot of our employees don't even come to our location as they meet us on the site. It's a construction industry. We go out and provide services. We don't do anything there but store and maintain some equipment. And I'll take any questions.
You talked to the environmental department about hooking the bathrooms to that existing system?
Yes, sir. So the office building is permitted. It's been there. Whenever I bought the property, there was a repair, some kind of repair thing that they had approved. That was done. Been there for 3 years, no issues. The building is not hooked into that. So we were working with a contractor in the beginning to, with this building. We permitted it. I went to the codes department, got a permit. Started out as a $50 permit because that's what a storage building permit cost. When I let them in on, hey, I've got skid steers, tractors, I run this business. Okay, it's a different permit. It changed to an $800 and something permit, a different permit. Then later on, similar to the Bill Rice Ranch. It developed more because, it just developed into more. Not that we're trying to really change anything different. Maybe that building is more suited for than the existing trailer. Although we spent a lot of money on it originally, we purchased it. We use immigrant workers on a federal H-2B program. It was hard to find housing. That's how this property came about. At some point on the existing property we've been at for a few years now, we couldn't come to terms with the owner. We leased it. We couldn't come to terms with the owner on that. Had to do something else. That's kind of how all this started. Looked into the fact that all land in the state of Tennessee is by default zoned agricultural. Clearly states horticultural services, which that's a T what we do. I am a landscaping horticultural services company. I'm not a engineer or planning guy, but that's what it reads, and that's what we were under the impression. So we built a building. Contractor kind of led us in the wrong direction on some of the stuff on the interior, got fired. We started working with the codes department myself directly. Haven't done anything since that, and then dealing with Tanya and Doug and you guys. So it's kind of just been sitting there ever since, trying to make sure we go the route, the correct routes and get it done right. I realize we're kind of behind the gun, and may have overstepped a little bit, not intentionally, but just trying to back up and get it straightened out now.
Will anybody be living there?
I'm sorry?
Anybody be living on the premises?
Not now. I mean, there is still somebody at the moment. Our plan with this, we just had some of the immigrant workers, the H-2B guys, just went back to Guatemala. There is another guy their brother still living there. I've got to give him time to get out.
Well,
but yes, under this, no.
If this is approved, there won't be anybody living there, right?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay, are you going to be working on equipment in the building? Is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
Like working on rebuilding motors or what? What do we?
No, just maintenance. I mean, changing oil, tires, weed eaters, stuff like that. I mean, gets too in depth. I mean, we might rebuild a motor on a lawnmower or something, but if it gets too in depth, I mean, it's a pretty good sized building. The intention. But before I found out about any of the zoning, the different zoning, the intention was to blend in with the neighborhood, try to be a part of the neighborhood. We intentionally, before knowing anything, moved the building back behind any house lines there, turned it around so that all the activity is done on the back side of the building. The front side of the building does not face the road. So you would drive around the building and everything. It's a tall building. Again, the purpose of it was for privacy, for us, privacy and protection of our stuff, as well as shielding anything for the neighbors' purposes.
Hours of operation?
I'm sorry?
Hours of operation?
We start, we get to the shop around 7:30. Generally try to get in by 5. We're weather dependent. I mean, it's a landscaping business.
Saturdays?
Occasionally, we try not to, but again, it's weather dependent. So occasionally, but like I said, we don't have a lot of traffic coming in or any traffic coming in. We don't have any retail space. We'll not have retail space. We don't have customers that come to our place. We do a lot of design and stuff like that, but we go to all of our customers, for several reasons. Liability purpose. I mean, if I don't have to, I'd rather be on their property.
It looks like in the building you were building offices in the building to start with. Now you're talking about moving the offices out into the trailer. So what are you going to do with the office space in the building?
So originally, there was no office space in there. There was not. We had
Is that not already at least rough framed up for offices or
It
some of the
is.
rooms in there?
It is,
So
but
what's
when
the
it-
utilization, well, how are you going to utilize those rooms now if you're going to move the office out into the trailer?
Well, we've discussed a couple things, either eating that money and tearing them out, taking it out, or doing away with the front building, which this new building is a lot better looking building. It's a lot nicer building. With that, then you have, you take away the residential look that, of the community feel. So, we're up for, suggestions on that. We proposed and talked with everyone on, saying, hey, okay, well, let's just, get all the residents off of this property and making this the offices, and we'll eat the cost of that, whatever we need to do.
I don't mean any disrespect to you whatsoever, but in my opinion, if we zone this, you can come back in a month's time and put people right back in that trailer, and we wouldn't have a leg to stand on. Once that is approved and stuff. So that's why, at least I've urged last month to have a planned commercial development that we could have stipulations, but I don't know. I guess we can get through the public hearing and talk about this more in the past. But you could be in a car wreck going home and something happened to you and somebody else end up with a piece of property, and then they can have commercial services and do something that's totally different than what we're looking at here tonight. There's a whole menagerie of things that could happen, and you could have all the best intentions in the world, but life happens. So that's what.
And
I'd be a little more, appeased personally if the trailer left completely. You hooked the building on the septic system, and there wasn't the ability to put another residence in front of it, because it's. But I'm just thinking out loud here. But I may have got way ahead of myself. But I'm still looking for clarifications how we can feel sure that there won't be somebody in that trailer in 3 months from now or in the spring when your guys come back.
Yeah, and again, that's.
Or living in that shop building which the rooms are already at least framed up in there. You don't want to turn the trailer into an office and you got your guys from Guatemala living in the big building.
Right.
And stuff. So that's something I don't think anybody wants to happen.
Yeah, and I understand that. Again, that's back to, the building's been framed up, and that was one of the options, is to do away with the trailer. I don't have a problem with that. Quite honestly, it's not worth very much. It's not. We've vastly improved the looks of the property since we've owned it. It was known in the neighborhood. It was a dump. It was a complete dump. The trailer was uninhabitable. It had no running water. It had no working septic or sewer. It stank. There was an odor. There was trash everywhere. There was TVs, that aren't supposed to be busted and leaking out in the ground. But that was all perfectly legal because it was zoned residential, and it was his residential stuff that he could pile up junk everywhere. We have cleaned the property up, and again, are trying to be good stewards of the community and blend in with the community. I don't have a problem with tearing the trailer down. I've put a significant amount of money into it. Don't have a problem with that. My intentions are not to do anything that I haven't said I was going to do. Again, subject to any comments from you guys. I'm learning this stuff. I will say I don't know. I'm old farm boy, grew up in what I thought was an agricultural business here. Found out I was wrong, not the first time, and just trying to make it right and fix it.
Questions for Mr. Skelton? Stay close. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against may come forward, state your name and address, please. I'll remind you of we don't have rules, but our guidelines are 3 minutes to address the commission, unless you represent a group. And if you'll just let me know, you'll have all the time that you want. But we would appreciate you keeping your comments within those 3 minutes, please. She can.
My name is Leslie Self, and I live at 10597 Rockville Road, directly across from this building. The zoning resolution says, the building will not have an adverse effect on the adjacent property, the character of the neighborhood, or other matters affecting public health, safety, and general welfare. There are 40 local petitioners, all adjacent property owners, against commercial spot zoning of this property that no one in the neighborhood knew was for sale. This business will bring noise, big equipment, traffic, destruction of the rural landscape, which it's already done, and foreign workers housed on the site. According to documents, we have found that Mr. Skelton has been in business for 10 years at 3 different addresses, and none of them appear to have ever had the proper zoning. A stop work order was placed on this property, as well as the previous address. Mr. Skelton has stated that he does work off-site and works from a home office. He has gone from a home office to a 5,000 square foot building that was put up illegally and built out with 5 offices, 3 full baths, a kitchen, and other space. This is a house inside the pole barn, and he houses foreign workers on the site in a trailer. And my question is he going to house workers inside this 5,000 square foot building as well? When Mr. Skelton purchased this property, he had the option of making the purchase contingent upon getting commercial zoning and approval of the septic site, and he did neither. He was granted a permit for a pole barn to be used for storage. Around the time this permit was granted, he was in the process of also applying for a $120,000 development loan for the building in question. There was never any question about his intention for this building. He lied to the neighbors and he lied to the Planning Commission, and he was never approved for a building with 5 offices, a kitchen, and no working septic. An October 31st meeting was held on the property. It was supposed to be a neighborhood meeting to inform property owners what his plans were. No one showed up because no one got a letter. Once again, adjoining property owners and the commission were deceived. This 5,000 square foot building, as it now stands, has never had a septic inspection. Prior to this, raw sewage bubbled out of the ground for years and was a continuous problem. Based on the documents that we have obtained, this building appears to be placed over the existing field lines. An EPA-protected creek runs behind the property and is at risk of contamination. In our presentation to the committee, we've included pictures of past flooding of the adjacent property that's on a floodplain that flows directly over to 10596 Rockville Road, and the Concord Creek flows into the Harpeth watershed. And I also question whether or not a fire hydrant is required with a building this large. Records show that in September of 2016, Mr. Skelton purchased a 25-acre farm at 4073 Hill Road. He could maintain his business at this address as opposed to trying to place it on a 2.8-acre lot with no septic in a residential area. If this is zoned commercially, Mr. Skelton would be able to sell it to a number of other commercial businesses as allowed by zoning regulations, and I just found out that this includes adult businesses as well. This would destroy the character and integrity of the rural area and the home values that surround it. Mr. Skelton states in his letter that he offers competitive job opportunities to the area. Mr. Skelton hires foreign workers and houses some of them in front of the building. This does not help the community, nor does the community know if the foreign workers housed on this site are properly documented, and this brings into question the safety of the community. My realtor and appraiser, who was at my home when the concrete to this building was being poured, stated this business would devalue my property by 25 to 30%. This alone would not be in keeping with the zoning resolution not to have an adverse effect of adjacent property, the character of the neighborhood, or other matters affecting public health, safety, and general welfare. When I originally called in April, I was told that he received a permit for a pole barn and that we would have to take a wait-and-see attitude. After Mr. Skelton began operating his business, a stop work order was issued, but not until later this fall. Spring and summer, the property was a mess with numerous vehicles and numerous people in the trailer, most of whom are now gone. And this wasn't cleaned up until the stop work order was issued and the issue came before the Planning Commission. and I think this is indicative of how things would be if he is granted commercial zoning. The few commercial zone properties in the area do not devalue other properties or bring equipment or numerous employees to the neighborhood. The main business in this area is a feed mill located next to cow pasture. I urge the commission to reject commercial zoning for this address. It has all the attributes of a negative outcome for years to come. And several of our neighbors wanted to attend this meeting, but because of work schedules and other commitments, they couldn't, and they have written out statements and asked us to read them on their behalf. So I have a letter from Jimmy Nelson, and he is one of the signers of the petition. I don't have the address, but it's one house down from this building. And he says, I reject commercial zoning for 10596 Rockvale Road. I do not want big trucks tearing up the road and endangering my grandchildren, creating noise, traffic, and disruption. Last meeting, the commission members brought up some of the other properties that are commercial zoned in the area. Celebration Feeds and the properties owned by Thompson Services, along with Elrod Cabinet Shop. These properties are not located in between a clump of houses and residential properties. Celebration Feeds is an agricultural business, and it's been here for more than half a century. The community buys livestock feed here, and there is a cow pasture on all sides, not houses. Gary's Garage services local vehicles, and his neighbors are cows. Neither can be seen from the houses. Elrod Cabinet Shop has been home to a grocery store and other community businesses owned by local property owners. They all serve their immediate area. The Thompson Services property was formerly a dairy barn. The street on it does not have clumps of purely residential properties. The dairy barn always had traffic and is not within sight of the Rockvale Road homeowners. So these commercially zoned properties have no similarity to the property in question on Rockvale Road. The commercial landscape business would bring 20 employees, mainly non-American, heavy equipment, noise, disruption, and danger to the neighborhood in terms of vehicle, unknown pesticides, and employees living on the premise. I have known a lot about this property as I've lived here for many years. The septic was always a problem, bubbling up from the ground, and I have seen the property flooded several times over the years. The Celebration feed truck goes to the mill once or twice a week. It does not tear up the roads and cause disruption. The Elrod truck is small and is not a piece of heavy equipment. These businesses are small and non-disruptive. The Celebration building and the Elrod Cabinet Shop have historic value in terms of the history of the community. These buildings go back nearly 100 years. They're the only commercial buildings on Rockvale Road and have always been part of this community. Mr. Skelton's letter to the Planning Commission states he wants to add value to the community by offering competitive job opportunities when in fact he hires non-Americans to do the work. I expect he does not have to pay taxes, unemployment insurance, Social Security, or health benefits to his non-American workforce who do not contribute to our road taxes when they drive this heavy equipment. So I do not believe Mr. Skelton is really contributing to the community by being located here in any way. He is detracting from it. And I am concerned about crime as we know nothing of his employees or even if they are properly vetted. I believe he bought a cheap piece of property. Many of the surrounding neighbors would have bought for pasture land or a housing lot and broke zoning laws by putting up a commercial building that was zoned for a pole barn and then located his employees on the premises in the trailer to help with the cost of cheap labor. Now there is a stop work order, but I still see many trucks coming in and out. In late October, Mr. Skelton said he sent out a letter to the community. I do not know anyone who got that letter, which is why no one showed up. Mr. Skelton has been deceptive to the community and to the Planning Commission and its inspectors. And I strongly reject granting commercial zoning. Signed, Jimmy Nelson. Thank you.
Anyone else? Hello?
My name's Angela Langdon. I live at 10506 Rockvale Road, which is the property immediately adjacent to the right of of 10596. I have lived at this property for over 20 years and have tried to purchase it several occasions, unfortunately failed. So now here we are in a situation which is not going to benefit the community. I took the time to read the zoning regulations, 49 pages of very interesting information. And at the top of my document that I submitted, which I won't submit you to listening to me read it, but you know the rules and regulations regarding purpose and activity. And this property development for rezoning does not fit in any shape or form to the purpose and activity of the zoning regulations. I fail to understand how it even got permitted in the first place. So further on, there is also the issue of the septic field. I have looked at all the documentation, and it is evident that although they redug the solid lines, which make a little sort of circle outside the back of the house, which is approximately 30 feet from my property line, they did not take into account of redoing the lines because the barn is actually built on them. And I cannot see any way that the actual septic field could be used because the building is sitting on top of it. And I suspect that if you were to actually imagine, it's the size of this room. Their septic solid line field is the size of this room. Barely able to take 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom because I have seen raw sewage seep out of the ground on numerous occasions. And regarding the repair permit that was issued to Mr. Hartley, who was the previous owner, he actually didn't finish the repair. And I have photographs that I included in my first submission that showed a backhoe and a bunch of weeds with a ditch. And that was his attempt at repairing the septic. Yes, Mr. Skelton came in. He dug it all up. He made a lot of mess and cleaned it up and made it look pretty. But Mr. Hartley was told at the time, there is a letter from the Water Department, Environment and Conservation, that he should pursue alternative laundry facilities. And evidently, Mr. Skelton knew about it because he had his incumbent workers washing their laundry outside the house. So I still bring up the issue of the septic. There is no way, even if he pulls down the house, I cannot see a 3-bathroom building shop being supported by that tiny septic line. So I'm going to be subjected to raw sewage, and he's going to have a problem because not only will there be 3 bathrooms, there is going to be a lot of water usage, cleaning equipment, storage of chemicals. We have a blue line EPA creek, ladies and gentlemen, at the back. Yes, it's a flood creek. Yes, it doesn't carry water all the year round, but it is still a Harper River watershed creek. And eventually, the EPA will get round to sorting it out because it's a mess. It currently requires a $1,000 permit from the state to even go in there and clean out the dead trees, which is absurd. Right, who's got $1,000 to spend on that? So I am concerned not only for the community, but the environment. We didn't buy houses to have this commercial activity next to us. And as one of the commissioners brought up, he could turn around and sell it. If the septic goes funky on him and he can't get it to work and can't fix it, he could turn around and sell it with a commercial zoning services zoning, and that does include adult entertainment. And it's within 600, 700 feet of a church. I'm not sure. I went and looked at all the list of alternative commercial services. Not good. Not good. So I'm really unhappy. I wish for this to be declined. It is inappropriate. It seems to me the planning department, along with the commission, are failing to read your own regulations or failing to fully implement them. He does have a record of not complying with regulations, of being in violation at 3 different properties, one on Old Jackson Ridge Road, now at Thompson Road, and he's had a violation, but he's still there. Oh, we'll forgive him. He can't work at Rockville Road, but we'll let him stay. I'm sorry, when does the buck stop? When does it stop? You're supposed to be representing us, not just one person. It's not right. This smacks of good old boy behavior behind closed doors. So, and lastly, groundwater control. We have massive floods. I've stood up to my knees in water in my drive. They do go into the neighboring property, and his septic field is at the lowest place. What restrictions or requirements, regulations are there for flooding and inundation? Groundwater control, contamination of other people's ground, contamination of the Blue Line Creek behind the property. There has to be a limit to how much you let one person skate past the regulations. And it has to be now, because we're not going away. We're going to give you a headache, because I do not want this to happen. So if you want to play the good old boy book, be my guest. It's going to get very, very problematic. I'm a nice person, I'm a kind person, I don't go blasting at people, but this is really the end of the limit. So that's enough of my thing. I have a letter from one of our community residents, which I'd like to read out to you. My name is Terry Bennett. I reside at 11148 Rockvale Road. I'm against the zoning of outdoors unlimited going commercial on Rockvale Road. We already have issues with traffic. Speeders are the #1 issue, and already we are seeing higher volumes of this. This will only increase. Also, I have concern about crime that could possibly be increased as to having undocumented or unknown workers. Nurseries and landscapers are notorious for illegal workers. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, if I could make just a comment, just briefly. A couple of speakers have made the claim that adult entertainment is a use in the commercial services zone. I want to make sure everybody is aware adult entertainment is not permitted in the commercial services zone, nor has it ever been. So I'm not sure where they're getting that information, but I wanted to clear the record for that. Thank you.
Elton, before you address, we need to hear from others before you readdress. Revelation.
If you give me 1 second, I will do that. So, guys, nobody's looking for no good old boy system. I mean, we can sit up here and make allegations and racist comments all day long. The fact is, I use a federal, which is a American federal H-2B program for my workers. I don't have undocumented workers. So we can make racist comments all day long up here. The fact is, my workers are documented, they are legal, they pay taxes, I pay taxes, I pay a lot of taxes into this county, we do what's right. It's hard for somebody to sit here and listen to, No, building is not set on top of the septic field. First off, that's part of the codes. I know you guys know this. To get a final permit on this building, you had to be 10 foot off the septic field. Guess what? We got a final permit. We're off the septic field. It was dug up personally by me, by hand, for the inspector. We had that final inspection. Plenty more comments to those comments, but I just had to address a couple of things. We don't have undocumented workers. We do things legally, and it's hard to sit there and listen to some of these things that are being thrown out.
Thank you, Mr. Skelton. While the other gentleman is coming up, let me just make a brief comment that this commission, and I'm speaking for the commission, does not address things that may be or could be or would be. We address the request that's in front of us. The request that's in front of us is to develop this property in a commercial way, not about sewage, not about workers, not about those kinds of things. Your comments need to be addressed as to why this should not be rezoned commercial. All of the septic systems would be addressed at a site plan. So the county would not allow an unsanitary situation to exist. If they couldn't be corrected to the county's satisfaction, that rezoning request could not go forward. So all of those concerns not all of them, but some of those concerns, especially about sewage and those type of things, are really things that would be considered. But if you could address why this is not, and there were several things, Mrs. Self and Mrs. Langston addressed those things, but we're spending a good deal of time talking about why this should not be because of things that have happened in the past. We want to know, is this a good place to put commercial services, or is it not? We would like those comments to be addressed. Some of the other things we can't fix, but this commission would not approve a site plan that did not remediate all of those concerns: sanitary sewage, water issues. All of those concerns would be addressed to the satisfaction of our staff, of this commission, and according to our policies and procedures. So our decision is this a good site to put a commercial zone? And that's what we're here for. And we need to stop calling names. Address this in a business-like manner. Thank you. I'm sorry.
I reside across the street, right across the street from this ordeal. My question is how did it get this far? There is a system of checks and balances, I would hope, in this county. So I don't understand, as the building was being constructed, why didn't the inspectors go out there and do the job that they were hired to do? Didn't they inspect like the footings or all of the apparatus that went into the building? If they would have done their homework, I know that the soil site is another matter. But with all of the problems with that location, with the Blue Line Creek right next to it, with the sewage problems that exist and probably will always exist with that property, I just don't understand why it got completely built and approved by this county with all of the obstacles that were there. I don't think someone did their job properly, either for the issuance of the permit to build it, because anybody can look at it and clearly see it's no pole barn. It's quite different than a pole barn. So you know, there are a lot of things about this that make me wonder, did the system fail? Because if the inspections were actually done like they were supposed to have taken place, I don't think they ever would have got a building permit at all. I don't think it matters exactly where the workers come from or who they are. That's a different matter in entirety. But my concern is for the neighborhood. It clearly, as a business will be, does not conform to all of the residences around this. It would be an eyesore. It would be a lot more traffic. I don't see not a one benefit that having this business here with this zoning would help anybody in the community, except for one person, and that's the person that's wanting to pass this. You're dealing with someone that is clearly stated that can't be trusted, but again, I don't see how it got this far, and I think it would be a crime to make a commercial zoning in a residential neighborhood like it is right there. I just hope that the gentleman isn't related to somebody on the board or isn't a bosom buddy friend, but it just doesn't seem right. And I think that there's a lot of integrity, though, with this council, and I would hope that this would be looked at really hard under a microscope and to see if this actually makes sense for everyone in the community and not just the person that wants to do it. So I guess that's it. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. I'm not sure that we've got your name. Thank you, Mark. Anyone else? Doug, could you make a comment or two as it relates to the process that we've gone through? And the gentleman that just spoke asked, how did it get to this particular point? And
Yes, sir. When someone comes into our office and they request, well, before they get a building permit, they have to get what's called a zoning compliance certificate. We're kind of the first stop for that. Now, when they come into our office and say they want to build a pole barn, or they say they want to build an accessory structure, whatever it is they want to build, we have to take them at their word. You know, we may ask some probing questions as far as, okay, what exactly are you going to use it for, these kind of things, but we're taking whatever they're telling us at their word. Now, whenever there is a issue raised after a building permit has been obtained by someone, if somebody calls in and says, well, it looks like maybe they're not doing what they're doing, then we send zoning enforcement out. So I think that's kind of how this came about to where it is right now, is he legitimately pulled a permit for the building. I mean, there's no question about that. Now, as far as all the interior work he did, when someone started realizing he might be doing something in the building that's above and beyond just doing a pole barn, that's when zoning enforcement gets involved, and ultimately that's when the stop work order was put, and that's ultimately how we ended up where we are here today.
I'm up. My name's Ronald Williams. I live at 11090 Versailles Road, about 1 mile from this site. I'm a little familiar with this whole property. My great-grandfather used to own it, and we used to do work on this, and this is a very poor soil area. When we auctioned it off in 1971, we found 2 soil sites, and 2 houses were put in. Since then, there's been some concentrated looks and finding area. In this particular site, I've gone up after some interest when y'all were asking him to relook at this, and the site, the area, according to the groundwater people, is 20 by 20 by 30 that has enough soil on this for this place. In 2013, the place was shut down by the environmental place and for raw sewage, and they suggested that they find alternative laundry facilities and any other thing because the site was too small for the trailer that was there. That having been said, I don't guess I understand why we want to put, is it the chicken or the egg on this? If we And by the way, I think y'all do a good job because nothing has been approved or anything yet, and y'all did want to send it back to have some more control on it. So, you know, with some negative comments, I'll give you a little pat on the back because I seem to think you do a pretty good job most of the time. I don't think it's a good thing for the community. I've been out in the community since 1949. This little section of Rockville Road changed when they put the new 99 through, and this has become a more of a neighborhood. I think, Rhonda, you were asking about the other businesses. Those were all grandfathered in. They've been there forever. When the rezoning came, none of the existing commercial buildings on this have met that. My concerns are twofold, that the community gets no benefit out of this, and that this company, and I understand that he's thought that he was agricultural, but he's been in business for 10 years, and he's been sliding right under the radar all the time. And if you look at the first building plan that he did, it looked more like a dormitory than it did anything else, as Will pointed out. So if this gets approved, he's bought him a cheap piece of property. He can turn around and sell it as a commercial thing, and then us in the community are going to have a problem because we've got a blue line stream, and then we're going to have one little piece of commercial property sitting right in the middle of this other little section of where people live. And the ladies that have been up here, I've never known them before. I've talked to them briefly, but you know, when you live by yourself and you're out in the community and you've been there for years, you get a sense of comfort. And then when somebody's bringing in a lot of workers, regardless of where they're from, that you don't know, and they are changing, and then that industry, regardless of who you get from wherever they are, that is a labor force that's always changing. So I really understand their concern of safety and good for the community. So I would just urge you not to approve this there's a whole bunch of reasons. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Anyone else?
Commissioner Pettis Reed, and I know y'all are ready to take care of this, and I understand that totally. The irony of this whole thing right here, I was sitting back there and I just got a message from the Sheriff's Department. I think one of the speakers back here were talking about the speed on Rockville Road. In our last budget situation, we approved for the Sheriff's Department one of these speed signs where it tells you to slow down, your speed is too fast for this road. In other words, like it's 40 miles per hour in this road, you need to slow down. And we approved one of those for the Sheriff's Department, and we have tried to put one out there near Rockville Road. And we asked a property owner out there to place it on their property so we could do that, and they did so. And they got a complaint, the property owners did, and they received a letter from Zones telling them they have an illegal sign on their property. And if they don't move it, they're going to be fined for having an illegal sign on their property. And this come from Zones, David. So since you left now, this is what we're getting into. So I've got the letter, if you'd like to see the letter, what's come through here. But what I'm saying and why I'm saying that, as a county commissioner, I can never win. I want you to understand that. That's just, I mean, I think I'm doing some things right, and then some things it turns out that there's always a complaint and always a problem there. In this situation right here, I have to tell you, I don't know how many times I've driven that road in this last month looking at it and thinking, you know, what do we do? How do we do this? I know we're in a situation now. I know you have the problem. This will be your decision and what you have to do with it. because we do have a building that is there. How do you do this? Do you tear it down? Do you allow the property owner to go on and do what he has to do there? I have talked, Ms. Langdon has called me. I know she has called me. I know Mr. Skelton has called me in different situations. I always look at who calls me and things of this type and the way we go that way, and I also look at the advice that I give when individuals call and whether or not they take the advice. I do know in this one right here that the Mr. Skelton, whenever codes or whatever has told him to do something, since we've got into this situation, we try to do that. When he dealt with the worker situation in this house right there, he agreed that they would no longer be workers on that property, and I think that has been one of the problems there, whether or not to house individuals there because of the septic and because of the soils. I think, as Mr. Williams here has mentioned, there are soils problems there, and I would agree with that totally, that there are those problems. And as Commissioner Jordan has mentioned here, something would have to be done as far as that trailer is concerned and as far as that building. There are two options there, as you never know. And when I heard the applicant say that he is agreeable that the trailer could be torn down, I would agree with that totally too. As I said, I have driven up and down that road looking around. As you mentioned, what other commercial properties out there. I know the operators of Elrod's Cabinet Shop. They received a letter about the property. Whenever that was held, I asked them. They said they received it. In fact, they said they got 3 letters. Other individuals I have talked to on the road said they had received letters. I got a letter. So individuals did receive a letter about that meeting. I do know there were individuals who did receive the letter, and I do know that did happen. So my opinion would be that the trailer would be removed, but I do have to say this, that he has tried. Something I saw in this plan that you have there that I've never seen before is that he has a irrigated drive. I've never seen that, where it keeps down the dust and things of this type and things of that type. So there is some trying on there. So I brought with me this evening the zoning ordinance. I was on the Planning Commission when we worked on this thing, and I spent a day just recently trying to go back through this and trying to read it, and I read about horticultural services, and I can see where you can become confused in that and how it applies to commercial services. Commercial services, I would say, is probably correct in what we're looking at there as far as that goes. So when you look at this, I think we're in a situation that has to be solved in a manner where we have to look at these things. But I think you do, as Commissioner Jordan says right here, we have to fix it in the way that works the best.
Anyone else wishing to speak for or against? No one else, I'll declare the public hearing closed.
I've got a question for staff. The pictures up there that show apparently looks like a new septic system is exposed and going in, was that an approved permitted septic system, and was that permitted? Because apparently, Mr. Williams said there wasn't enough soil area there for the trailer, but then that's a new system. At least it looked like a new system to me. And do we know if that was permitted and if that was sufficient size for the trailer and things like that?
It's my understanding that it is. Now, have I seen a permit that shows that for certain 100%? No. But that's my understanding, is that was a permitted situation.
Looks obvious that is not under the building when you kept switching back and forth. But I would just, because he said there was a 20 by 20 by 30 area, that looks like that's a bigger area than that, because there's more than 2 sticks of pipe laying on the ground going down through there, looks like. But I'm guessing those are 10-foot sticks of pipe, and there's 5 or 6 long on each side, so it's 60 feet or something like that. But I was just curious.
I just clarify on the septic system. The existing septic system that was originally with the house that is underneath the building failed quite some time ago. The system that you see dug up here was a modification and/or addition relocate permit that was issued 2 years ago. The last time I talked to Mr. Skelton was about a week ago, and it did not have a final inspection. They are required to have a final inspection within 36 months, and the last time I talked to him, he was going to call for a final inspection. Yeah. Did you call?
So to that, there was a permit from, when I bought the property, yes, I knew about the septic issues with the. Yes, sir, there was a permit. It was a repair permit. It transferred with the purchase of the property.
But this was not inspected before it was covered up?
No,
Not a final
because we were told, again, I didn't pull the permit, but when I went down there, I was not told, I was told that it was a repair permit and that, because it wasn't a full redo. We didn't touch the tank, we didn't touch any of that. Again, we were told that it was fine. Now, I did.
You had to have a licensed installer to do that.
No,
did
you do not in the state of Tennessee. You do
They
not.
made me do one a month ago with a licensed installer. And
They recommend it, but you
And it had
do.
to be inspected before it could be covered
Now,
up.
inspection, so yes, we called to get the inspection.
But once it's covered up, I don't see how they even inspect it.
I
They have to know how deep
understand.
the pipe is and things like that.
I understand. She told me to call. I did. The environmental department came out there. The two newer guys, younger guys came out there and did their inspections. The main guy, gentleman, I don't remember his name. He called me later that day, said that I can't sign off on it. In the state of Tennessee, you are liable for it. He said, I can't sign off on it. He said, but, for a final, he said, with the state of Tennessee, you are liable for it. Yes, you can. They don't recommend it. Put it in without a licensed installer. Again, all this information came from them, or in the beginning. In talking to these guys, I mean, that's why I knew that, so I have the equipment, I install drain lines, not field lines, but drainage systems all the time. We got the information from them, as far as the facts that the field lines can fluctuate 4 inches. It's not the best, but my system that was installed is perfectly flat per what the state wants. There is no fluctuation in it. We did what we had to do to get that in. Now, again, all this information came from the environmental department. Nowhere on that thing did it ever say that a final inspection, because it was a repair permit that was issued. Again, there's different people there since that was issued, but that was the information that was relayed when we bought the property. It's been there for 3 years, and there's never been.
I don't see any gravel in that picture. Did you put gravel around that pipe, or just put the pipe straight in the ground?
There's gravel, and there's filter fabric on top of it. It's been dug up and shown to the county inspector to release the final permit for the building.
Well, I'm just wondering how you got the gravel across the ditches in there where there's a dirt in the way, and the ditches are encapsulated by other ditches right there, so.
Per their permit, there's 10 foot between each section.
I'm not trying to argue with you, but like where there's 2 ditches that are 10 or 12 feet apart, how would you have gotten gravel in that ditch?
Go around, see the tracks around there, and dumped it from that side?
The other ditches, your 3 ditches.
No, you can go around, see there's tracks up there at the top? See those tracks going to the top?
You're saying you fit your skid steer down that 10-foot section?
Correct. I pull it down the road, which is less than 10 foot, so, yes, sir.
Well, we're getting off in the weeds, and I apologize for that. I've got the same exact problem I had last month, and the same exact problem I had at the start of the meeting, at the start of this agenda item, that if something happens to this gentleman or changes his plans or something, we've got a commercially zoned piece of property in the middle of a residential area. He can have all the good intentions in the world, but it's still a commercially zoned piece of property. Personally, I would support a planned commercial development or something where we could have stipulations on it, something that would go away whenever he stops doing this business. But I did not, personally, I'm not going to vote for rezoning on this piece of property.
Last month, wasn't a PUD suggested, and why was that not followed up on? Why are we still
Well,
looking at
ultimately,
commercial?
right, I understand, but ultimately, he decided to pursue his application. We discussed it, we discussed from his standpoint, what he's, the cost he was looking at, and ultimately, he decided he wanted to try to go forward with this.
Doug, I know as we process applications, there's some information that we can verify, and there's some information that is really just the honor system. We have to go off of what they tell us. I'm curious, though, he's told us that there would probably only be about 3 people who would be in and out of this location, and that's him, the mechanic, and the office manager. At some point, it feels like we should have questioned, why do 3 people need 5 offices, 3 bathrooms, a planning room, a meeting room, a work room, an employee room, and a reception area? It just feels like the information doesn't match up with the plan that he's proposed. Where would something like that have been caught? Where would that conversation have happened?
I mean, anywhere during the process, quite frankly. Now, understand as well that despite what he's saying in his application, well, again, this kind of goes back to what Will was talking about, there's nothing in here I can hold him to. He could sit here and say, yeah, I only got to have 5, 6 people out there, but if this is approved as a commercial services zone, I can't control that. I mean, there's nothing I can really do about that. So, I mean, a lot of it is I'm presenting the information that he's presenting. I'm presenting it to you, what he's presented to us. I'm not necessarily vouching for its accuracy in that sense.
Talked a lot about the septic system for the house, but the building, we have a design here. This is currently what's built there. I mean, it has a kitchen and 2 bathrooms. Is that on that septic system? Is it on a different septic system? Or?
Are you talking in the new building? The new building. Yeah. Well, it's not, the last time I was out there when I saw it, it's not completely built out. Now, he's done quite a bit of work in the building, but is it completely built out? That was when the stop work order was placed, so I don't think it's really hooked up to anything at this point. Well, I mean, there's the makings of what could be there, yes. But I don't think, nothing is working in that sense. Nothing's actually draining or anything.
Doug, if this is disallowed or not approved, does the building still meet the definition of a pole barn? Does he have to tear down the building? Or
I don't think he has to tear down the building. Now, there's a lot of work and things that he did inside the building that may be questionable. But the building itself, I mean, he got a permit for the building. I mean, there's no question about that. All the interior work he's done, that's, I think, where we'll have more of an issue.
So, in essence, the building would probably stand?
Yes.
And it may meet the definition of the permit that he drew?
It could be made to do that, yes.
Any other questions? You guys ready to vote? If not, we'll stay here as long as it takes, okay?
Still could be brought forth in another manner, such a PUD?
Yes, it could. Regardless of what happens here tonight, even if you deny it, he could come back, when he has a PUD application prepared. There's no time frame at that point. There's no minimum time he has to wait because at this point he only has a recommendation for denial. The full denial from the Board of Commissioners, that would kick in, I think it's a 6-month or 9-month deadline.
Or that would maybe, and be more accountable for more.
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry. Can you say that? I was having a problem hearing you. Could you say that again?
There would be more restrictions, more landscaping, and he would be held accountable for more under a PUD.
There's more control with a PUD application than there is with commercial services. I mean, there are landscaping requirements even with commercial services as a zoning, but as far as things like, I think the things you're referring to, things like, number of employees, hours of operation, things like that, there's more control from a plan development standpoint than there is from just a general zoning like commercial services.
Doug, if he comes back with a PUD, what you're talking about, those particular items that might be a little bit more control on that, but still gonna have neighborhood objection that we got tonight.
I would say that's a reasonable assumption, yes.
I'm not naive enough to think that building's going to be torn down. I just think we ought to be able to give the neighbors some assurances that this gentleman won't change career paths or something 2 or 3 years down the road, and anything that's allowed in commercial services would just go in there as a use by right. That's why I'm saying it is like it ought to be a planned development, because then we've got some control over what it's going to be next. Because that building's not going anywhere. You know, they may, you know, they could, if they decide not to do anything, they could take the interior out of it and store stuff in it, but I don't think he wants to throw away that much work and effort, and I don't blame him, but I think he ought to see our side and think that we want some control over what happens there to give assurances to the neighbor and not set a precedence at the next piece of property next door and come up in 6 months and say they want to be commercial because this one's on commercial. It sets a precedence. And this may not be the appropriate time or not, but for all the reasons I've stated previously on 2 times or 3 times so far tonight, I'll make a motion to deny this application.
We have a motion and a second to deny item number 16-A018 for Burke Shelton. Any other questions? All those in favor of the motion to deny, please say aye. Opposition? The motion to deny carries. This is scheduled to be presented for another public hearing before our full county commission on Thursday, January the 12th, 2017, right here in this courtroom at 6 p.m. I think the public hearing will start about 6:30 p.m. So it goes before another public hearing, or it will be scheduled before another public hearing, January 12th, 2017, at about 6:30 p.m. Once again, thank you for your participation in this public hearing. Item number 6D2, Land Company Holdings, Jim Hyson. Item number 16-A020 on Amaville Road, Commission District 20. County Commissioner is Trey Gooch. Size of the site is approximately 61 acres, tax map 95. Existing zoning is RM, residential medium density. Proposed zoning is a PUD, planned unit development. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This was also deferred at last month's Planning Commission meeting. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about this. Mike's going to bring up the plan development document. I do want to discuss some of the changes that were made during this. You'll recall that concerns were raised during the Planning Commission's meeting last month that the town of Smyrna voiced concerns with this application. I included a copy of an email from town planner Kevin Rigsby with your agenda materials, kind of outlining what their concerns were. Their concerns, as he relayed to me, is the property was or is located within their urban growth boundary for Smyrna, and that their comprehensive plan shows this area for more employment type uses as opposed to residential uses. As, of course, they're proposing both a commercial element and also a residential element as well. One of the commissioners also spoke with Smyrna's mayor, Mayor Esther Reed, who had similar concerns to that. After discussion, again, the Planning Commission did vote to defer that to allow the applicant opportunity to discuss his plans with town of Smyrna officials. The staff did meet with them a couple weeks back, and I'm going to update you on that. Hold on a second. Where's the, how do you get back to the PDFs? Let me see, I see it. Yeah, there you go. Is that already open? Okay, just give us a minute. It's just got to load up here. Can you find it on there? No, I see it. We're going to bring up the plan development document here, kind of go through just a little bit of this. I'll bring up the master plan here for us to look at. Okay. Of course, this is fairly similar to what, well, I mean, it's very similar, really, to what was shown at last month's meeting. You'll see, remember that there's a commercial element, more than likely many warehouses in this area, gas station down in this area, retail up here, a commercial node down here. The change that was made after discussion with Smyrna town officials, we met with their town planner, Kevin Rigsby, on this. This area here is kind of an area that's going to be reserved for possibly commercial or even residential. You'll recall that there were 77 homes back here in this area originally. There were about 4 or 5 in this area. The applicant has looked at this and thinks that this might be better suited possibly as a little small expansion to this commercial area right through here, but wants to reserve the ability that after looking at it, it might be able to be houses consistent with what was already built back here. But it does allow for a little bit of an expansion of the commercial use. It's not a huge change to the plan, but after discussing it with Smyrna town officials, they understood that, you know, this is something that's within the Rutherford County's control right now. It's an improvement over what could be there, as the current zoning is all residential. If somebody were to come in with just a residential subdivision, we would consider it on its merits. So it may not be exactly what town of Smyrna would recommend for this area, but they do realize that being that's not in their control, that there's only so much that can really be done. So that the applicant did decide to make that small change to the plan. So I did want to bring that to your attention, just so you're aware of that, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions for staff before we conduct our public hearing? At this time, I'll declare a public hearing open for item number 16-A020, Land Company Holdings, Jim Hyson. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward. Seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Better move. Very, very good.
Frankly, I think the statements earlier were exactly how we see it, and that is an improved use of this property over what you're zoned to do now. This is property that's been in Mr. Watson's family since 1958. His sister lived there until her death at 82 years of age. She was unmarried and lived there after her father passed away. This is a use they want to see for the property. They want residential there. They understand commercial is something that needs to serve the rooftops that are already there and the new ones that we're going to bring. So we just ask you to consider passing this, approving the change in the zoning, if you would. We would, and I think the Smyrna issues have been resolved, but it's not within the town limits. It's not adjacent to any town property there. There are no essential services provided. So we think this is an appropriate use, and frankly, maybe the only use that could be coming to that area for some time. So we appreciate your consideration and passing.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wishing to speak? Now I'll declare the public hearing closed. Commissioners.
I'm the one who had requested that they get with the town of Smyrna on this, and they did do that, and I appreciate that. That was something that they did voluntarily. You know, I guess I feel personally responsible for the fact that when we were putting together the comprehensive plan, that we missed this node. I feel like we should have identified this node because in the town of Smyrna's, in their comprehensive plan, it was clearly identified what their plans for it were. So I think that was a missed opportunity, and I take full responsibility for that. So, but yeah, based on everything they've said and the circumstances that we're in now, I have no objection to the plan. So I'll make a motion that we approve as presented, subject to all staff comments.
I have a motion to approve and a second, item number 16-A020. All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 6D3, 16-A021, Martin Watts, 292 Macon Road, fronts along the John Bragg Highway, Commission District 6, County Commissioner is Joe Frank Jernigan. Size is approximately 23 acres. 10 acres are proposed for rezoning. Tax map 110, existing zoning is RM, residential medium density. Proposed zoning is LI, light industrial. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. There's information that the applicant provided that's attached with your agenda packets today. So according to that information, they'd like to rezone a portion of this property. It's about 23 acres in size, but they're only looking, I'm sorry, excuse me, I was looking at the wrong thing. It's about, yeah, well, no, that's right. I'm sorry, 23 acres in size. They would like to rezone only about 10 acres of that, and the map in your agenda materials would show that on your iPads. The business would entail a total of 23 semi-trucks. The applicant operates an automobile transport company. There'd be an average of 3 to 5 on the property at any given time. Most of the time the trucks would be on the road and not stored on the property. There'd be 3 office employees and 23 drivers. They estimate adding between 2 or 5 employees yearly. They did include a concept plan. It's pretty it's conceptual as you can look at it. It's rather basic, but it is included with your agenda materials for review. And they said over the next 3 to 5 years, the applicant has indicated that they would like to build a shop for truck maintenance and also look at the possibility of opening a car sales lot on the front of the property. Although this property has an address of Macon Drive, you can kind of see by looking at the property, its frontage is primarily, I mean, it's all along John Bragg Highway. My guess is what happened is that Macon Drive probably extended down to this property prior to John Bragg Highway being extended out there. And so it just kept the address that it had. But I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's John Bragg Highway. But in case there was some confusion as to why the address was the way it was, that's my guess as to how that happened. Access, again, would be along John Bragg Highway. There's an existing median cut right in front of the property. Since this is a state road, TDOT permits would be required for any new access points or modifications to existing points. If this application is approved, we would request a traffic study in order to determine what, if any, improvements would need to be made to the median cut and property access drive. A Type 3 buffer is required for any kind of industrial zoning between properties that are zoned industrial purposes and for those that are zoned for residentially zoned purposes. You can see on the zoning map that there is a small amount of commercial general property right there. It's a car repair establishment, I believe. I forget, I think it's called Hayes, if I remember right when I drove out there. But so that would only require a Type 1 buffer in that area, but the remaining area that they would be looking at would be a Type 3 buffer is what they'd be looking at. Of course, that'd be something that we would verify at the site plan review stage, and of course, performance standards would also have to be met. We do have several concerns with the application. If it's approved, it would introduce industrial zoning in an area where there's none that currently exists. That being said, the comprehensive plan does contemplate limited industrial uses for rural centers. This area is actually within the Kittrell Rural Center identified by our comprehensive plan. There is commercial general zoning, which again, as you remember discussion earlier about our commercial zones, is the most wide open zone that we have for commercial uses. This really is one step down from light industrial. So the uses themselves, the zoning rather, is not a whole lot different, but there is a small bit of difference to it. Staff is more comfortable with the proposal of this zoning along John Bragg Highway than we would be somewhere along, say, Old Woodbury Pike or somewhere else in the node, some of the more rural areas of the node. So with that being said, another big concern that we have as staff is the ingress and egress of large trucks into and out of the site. There is a median cut, but again, the traffic study would have to be submitted to determine whether or not improvements would need to be made with large trucks coming into and out of the property. You know, there would need to be some sort of turn lanes or something there, improvements to be made. I received an email, which I did forward to you I believe last week, but I put a copy of it, I believe I put a copy of it as well, or Gail did, a copy of it on your tables from a Jane Rust regarding the proposed trucking company. Not so much a letter of opposition, although she does bring up several points for you to take a look at if you do consider approving this. That being said, I did receive several phone calls on this application. Some were just general information, but I did receive some that were in opposition to it. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Doug, on the 10 acres that they're, can you show me where the 10 acres are that they're looking to rezone? Which
Yes.
portion that is?
The area that's hatched right in this area, of course, this is the commercial general property right here. This is the remaining property here of the 10 acres is this darker hatched area right through here.
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out, is if the two smaller parcels to the left, if that was part of the 10 and the other was 23, I couldn't get scale. Because I was trying to figure out how they were going to utilize the curb cut if it was one of those smaller.
This small area right through here is actually part of the larger tract. This is actually a separate parcel, but it's all part of the same. When the applicant purchased the property, they got all of this in one deed. So, but this is a separate tract, but this is actually a little inset to the rest of the larger tract, about 21 acres. I think this is about 2.
What other zoning options would he have for this type of business?
Limited, light or heavy industrial, really. This falls under, the trucking part of it falls under the transport and warehousing activity classification, which is only allowed by right in the heavy and light industrial zones. Let me just double check. I don't think, there's something, let me just double check here. Yeah, they could do light or heavy industrial or employment activity center, which, I mean, this area is not really identified as that, but those are the only 3 zones that this kind of business is allowed in. It's not even allowed by special exception in any of the commercial zones.
Twice a day, and I got several phone calls against, and what they stated, the school is in this area on Murray Kittrell Road, across the highway. That's where the Kittrell School, all the traffic and the buses go in and out. Churches, right in this area.
Yeah, there's one immediately adjacent to the property. It's on this, it's on.
Fire department is also in this area. So, you know, you add buses, traffic to school, of course, churches, not as often, but emergency, and you add trailer trucks to that, people called me with concerns.
Questions for staff?
One more, Doug. I'm just looking at maps on my phone. So it looks like I'm assuming the goal here would be to get from this location to the interstate. What is that distance?
The distance from here to the interstate?
From this location, right, to the interstate? Do you know?
We can give you right. I mean, you're probably talking double that, I would guess, at least 15 miles probably.
And then one of the mentions was that John Bragg Highway was designated as a scenic highway. Is that correct? And do we make any provisions for that?
It is designated as a scenic highway. Most of the regulations I've seen deal a lot with signage and those kind of things. Most of it really deals with off-site signage. I've had some conversations with the folks from the state regarding on-site digital signage, those kind of things. Most of their regulations don't really involve that. So really, our regulations would just prevail at that point. But that is a correct statement. It is.
You know, was this road, because I mean, I know John Bragg, it's a fairly new road and very well built, but was it built with the intent of having this kind of commercial traffic on it? Do you know?
I don't know if that was exactly what their intent was. Now, that being said, whenever you have a high-speed four-lane with a divided median like that, you tend to start seeing commercial uses spring up in areas like that. Now, that's a very long road, as we know. And does that mean that every property along that is going to be some kind of business like that? Not likely. It is shown as, one of the corridors in our comprehensive plan, which does anticipate commercial type uses, non-residential type uses. Again, that goes back to one of the concerns I had. Do we really want to introduce light industrial along here where there really isn't any? When we zoned that property commercial general, it was because that was the use that most fit that particular zone. It wasn't because we were trying to encourage development along there. That was an existing use, and that's why we did it. So, good.
10.5 miles to the interstate.
Is that as the crow flies?
No, as the road.
Oh, okay.
As you drive.
Big truck.
Any other questions for staff? If not, we're ready for our public hearing. At this time, I'll declare a public hearing open for item number 16-A021. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this zoning request, please come forward.
I'm Martin Watts. I'm 754 Mary Kittrell Road where I live. Some of the questions that you like the traffic, we very seldom have trucks that come to our location at this point. Maybe on Monday mornings I might have one or two that comes by and drops off paperwork. Most of them are either at Nissan or they're in Florida or wherever they're and they don't park on site. They all take their trucks to their home with them on the weekends. There's about 2 that park on site. But as far as the traffic on John Bragg, we operated out of 315 Murfreesboro Street for 5 years. That's 3 miles down the road. So if you know where Heatcraft is, we actually operated in the back of that for 5 years. We had to move out because they were adding on, so we lost our space. But so that's why we're I live out there, and that's why I want my place out there. But we're really not going to change the looks of anything. There's trees that buffer everything from the road. You can't really see much. Like I say, I live 1 mile from the place. I don't want to change it either. I grew up there. I've lived there all my life. So if you got any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
How many trips in and out are you expecting daily?
How many trucks?
How many trips in and out of the property?
Maybe 5 a week. They very seldom come by just because it costs so much to operate the trucks. We don't run back and forth to the office with them. Like I say, they leave on Monday and usually they don't come back till Friday. And like I say, they usually go to their house and all of our paperwork is electronic. Mostly what we're going to be doing is dispatching, and we do our payroll and all that stuff that's what we are doing now. And as far as the shop part, I'm if that's something they're opposed to, I have no problem not doing that. I mean, the biggest thing is I want my office there. I don't like commuting to Murfreesboro. It's too far. But any other questions that I can answer for you?
I'm just curious about the car lot in the future. Why would you want to put a car lot there?
Well, what I was thinking is because of the existing house that's there now, that's what we're going to use as the office now. And when I move out of it, what I was going to do is build a shop and build new offices. And then I was just thinking of, something that I could do with that house in the future. But, that's not, I would assume I'd have to rezone for that anyway. So that's just something I put in there that I was thinking, so.
Thank you, Mr. Watts. Thank you. Anyone else? There's only 3 people out in the audience. I don't see anyone rising, so I'll declare the public hearing closed. Commissioners?
What exactly is he asking for?
He's asking for 10 acres to be rezoned to light industrial.
To do, he says there's not going to be any trucks or what?
Well, if there's not going to be any truck, now, I kind of heard him say that there were a couple that were going to park there. Now, if there were going to be no trucks that park there and it was just an office use, he wouldn't need light industrial zoning. He could get by, I mean, honestly, if he's just doing it, if he lived on the property and was doing it out of his home, he could do it as a home-based business. The issue becomes, you know, if he wants to have the trucks on the property and the future car lot, those are where the issues come in.
Car hauling trucks.
Correct. So if he's storing trucks on the property, that's, I mean, that's not something that could be part of a home-based business. Now, if it's just office use, and again, if there's a house on the property that he lived in, you know, he could do that with a home-based business without really much involvement in the planning commission.
Industrial is just a big leap for this area.
They had 2 employees that drove their trucks there, or to wherever they're based out of. And they are working on cars next door already. I don't know. I see he's got to, in my opinion, he ought to be able to do something there. I mean, these car haulers are if he's going to make a living with them, they're going to spend 99% of their time somewhere else. And they need to be on the road moving cars. They're up and down the interstate 3 states away or whatever. And if
What was staff's recommendation?
We were neutral on this. I mean, for the reasons, I mean, you're kind of demonstrating why we were neutral. We could see positive things, we could see negative things to it. Again, if there's a way to structure in such a way that there's no trucks on the property, now I'm not sure if he actually lives on the property or not. Yeah, that's right, I did say that. But if you wanted to use it as an office use, I mean, this could possibly be, I mean, if it's just pure office, you could even look at office professional. I mean, no, he wouldn't. If you'd like, I mean, I'm just throwing this out there as an option. I mean, we could sit down with the applicant and kind of discuss how he wants to move forward with this if you're not comfortable with it in its current form, and it could be deferred and brought back. Now, that being said, I mean, it's up to you what you want to do. I mean, you could just say, look, we're not going to be comfortable with this and just outright deny it, and then we could go from there. The reason I bring that up as a possibility is you know, next month we didn't receive any zoning applications, which means my Christmas present to y'all was going to be no meeting for January night meeting. If you defer this, we'll probably have to have one. So, but it's up to you how you want to move forward with this. Doesn't matter to me. You know, I'm paid the same regardless. But
hurting my arm while you twisting it there.
I'm kind of envisioning here, I heard the word shop in there somewhere, so I'm assuming that occasionally a truck comes in for a couple of days and he goes back there and maybe changes the oil or do whatever you do to get it road ready again. So I'm assuming maybe that's the whole purpose of this. And I don't see that as an objectionable place for that because it's well treed and it's in the back and he does have a little office there. You know, he's got an auto repair shop right next door. I don't see that that's probably, now the car lot thing, I'm not sure that that's a viable economic plan for that neighborhood. I'm not sure how well that'll work, but can he take that and use it as a car storage lot? That's another story. That gives me a little bit of heartburn there, but as far as parking a couple of trucks there, I don't have a problem with that. I could support that.
Now understand, kind of like the discussion we've had with the first application we looked at for rezoning. If it's zoned light industrial, it's light industrial. There's nothing I can do. If he brings it in and it's zoned for it, as long as it meets our zoning requirements and he gets a site plan to approve it, you're stuck with it.
problem I have with this. Business, and it's the zoning, and there's no other lower level zoning he could go to with this type of business.
Or what's considered transport and warehousing? No. He's got heavy or light industrial.
What about a planned development?
He could always try that, yes.
Comfortable with that?
One thing about part of that property is you see a big TVA power line running through there. He's going to put anything that he builds is going to have to be more off the road because they won't let you build. You know, it's probably 150 foot, 200 foot right away through there. I can see both sides. I mean, giving us a month off is not the worst thing in the world, but I do want to do what's right, and that's not a good excuse not to have a meeting. How serious you, sir, on wanting to move forward? Is this a have to, want to, need to tomorrow? I mean, we'd like to work with you and do what's the best option, but you know, I don't want to rush into it. I mean, I think it's a good use for the property as well, but I do want to try to adhere to some of the issues to make sure we're not hung with something down the road. So, can you speak to that?
Right now, my immediate concern is office space. But the reason that I didn't move in this, you know, I bought this for this reason. And the reason I didn't move into it is because I wanted to do things right. I mean, I could have put my office in there and started working and then tried to get forgiveness, but I don't want to do that. Because ultimately, there is eventually going to be trucks coming in and out. You know, it may, like I say, 4 or 5 a week. But I don't want to try to put something in here that, you know, I'm not supposed to. So, ultimately, I do want to build a shop there. But, you know, that's something that's going to be in a couple years. And it will be, if you look where the tree line, everything will be behind that tree line. Like you were talking, that the power line runs across the front of the property. You can park out there, but you can't put anything within 50 feet of that power line. So it would be back behind here. And also, that corner acre right there, that corner 5 acres right there is owned by, they're going to put a power station in there. That's owned by Middle Tennessee Electric. So that's another commercial piece of property that they're putting in there. So it's not like I'm the only thing there. But yeah, I do want to move forward with it. I do need to put my offices there. That's what I bought this for. As far as the putting in a building, you know, a shop or something, I mean, that's something I don't have to have right now. But as far as being able to pull a truck in there, then yes, I do need that.
Yeah, if he just had Office General or something, you still don't want a semi-truck coming in and out of there, even if it's just once a week or whatever.
That would be, I mean, am I...
Probably restricted to like a
Right.
UPS-sized truck or something like that.
Right, I mean, I'm not naive enough to think that we've got, you know, office zone property somewhere where there may be an occasional tractor trailer that comes in, but this sounds like more, while that's not going to be all the time, it's going to be more frequent than the occasional, you know, once a month or whatever that it comes in.
Freddie, he's being right up front with us about what he wants to do. You know, he's right. He could have gone and started doing business out of that house and never say anything to anybody, and we could be up here like the issue we just dealt with about somebody's out of compliance and trying to get them in compliance. So, I mean, we were just talking about there is a substation coming right there beside it. There is a auto repair shop next door, and it is on a divided highway. That's probably a 65-mile-an-hour speed zone right in front of there. So, that's a major road. That's not Murray Kittrell Road. That's something, I mean, he's got, and there's a major power line. What is that, a 500 kV power line out front or something? And, you know, you don't want, somebody's not going to want to build a house in front of that, so you got to give him some options to do with his property.
And Mr. Watts has had good references to be a good, honest businessman, too.
Oh, I've heard a lot of things, and maybe I'm the exception here, but I believe his main interest right now is to run an office out of that. But that will soon change. You know, to me, in a couple of years is not a long time, but in a couple of years, he'd like to build a shop and do some repair work there. And if his business flourishes, he would have more than a couple of trucks in there at a time. So the business would be an immediate office space, but grow into a trucking business. So light industrial probably would be the best suited for this business long-term. And the acreage gives him room to grow. So our decision is it appropriate, light industrial appropriate, I think. We could delay this if we wanted to, but I think that the zoning would probably still be, the zoning request would probably still be the same in my mind. Doug, with you?
I mean, yeah, I mean, as far as, since that's his ultimate goal, and I mean, it's really not just the ultimate, it's even more the immediate goal. You know, the office use, okay, that's going to be the first thing, but trucks are going to be soon to follow. I don't think it's going to be a couple of years, listening to him talk. I mean.
But it's not going to be like a trucking depot.
It doesn't sound like it's
that.
going to be anything like
no
that.
No products coming and going, not trucks rolling in and out on a daily basis. I mean, those trucks leave and they're gone all week. It's not like a FedEx hub or something like where those trucks are making 6 trips in a day apiece. And it's pretty low impact as far as I'm concerned. I'm sorry, I think Commissioner Allen had to speak at the microphone.
Doug, you seemed pretty hesitant when Charlotte mentioned, could this come back as a planned development? Why were you hesitant about that? Because just for me, it is an awfully big leap to go from residential medium to light industrial for all the reasons, like on the previous application we talked about, of if this property changes hands, all the different things that could happen there. And so it seemed to me like this would be one of those times, you know, that we would want to support this local business owner and try to help him find a way to do it. It seemed like it's one of those times that we would want to try to encourage him to do a planned development. I'm just curious why you were hesitant when she said that earlier.
Well, I think my hesitancy, there was a couple of things. Half of me was wondering, is this something that maybe we want to look at as opposed to just having it in heavy and light industrial zones? Do we want to possibly open it up to special exception in maybe some of the commercial zones? Like maybe commercial general, something like that. That was kind of where my thought process was going. There's also, I know, been some talk about looking at planned developments just in general as far as someone that wants to, like you said, a small business owner. They can do, there's nothing written that says that they have to use one of the local engineering firms to prepare a planned development application, although that's what most of them do. That's a costly scenario for them. I've had more than one come back to me and say, well, they're going to charge me X thousands of dollars to do something like that. And I think that was the other part of my hesitancy is, all right, do we really want him to go that route to spend that kind of money? So, I guess there's 2 different options that we could look at possibly during the upcoming year, excuse me. Do we want to look at possibly changing some of these uses like this that are really limited? And I'm not saying that they're not legitimately limited to industrial zones. I don't think you want to see something like this in like a commercial neighborhood or commercial services. But maybe we open it up to commercial general by right. Maybe we open it up commercial general by special exception, where it goes to the Board of Zoning Appeals, where there is a little bit more control. Or maybe we want to look at the plan development process, and maybe we have like plan developments and plan development light, in a sense. I think that's kind of where my brain was trying to take me on several different directions.
I hate to say this for all people, but Will's told us 100 times. I sure missed that conditional use permit, because this is another one of those perfect applications with the plethora of regulations that have come down from a federal and state and local level in the last few years. It has become so expensive, so difficult for a small businessman to run an operation now. It's almost impossible to get started, and it's really difficult to do something like this, and a planned residential development just adds to the cost. And in light of the fact that now we know there's a substation going to be going in next door, and I know they're doing a pretty good job of building those where they're not quite so bad, but a substation looks industrial to me. I don't think you can look any more industrial than that. I think in light of all of this, I'm going to make a motion that we approve this.
We have a motion with all of staff comments and a second to approve item number 16-A0121. A021. Other questions?
I'd feel more comfortable with Doug's suggestion. I don't know who Greg is. We've been here too long. With the special exception.
Well, and understand, I mean, that's something we can still look into. I mean, if this passes, ultimately doesn't, really affect him one way or the other. But something like that would have to be an ordinance change. It would take a few months to get through the process, like any ordinance change would. But that's something we'll definitely look into.
What happens to this property after this business? That's what we've talked about in the both previous things we voted on. I admire this guy. He's got good references. It's a good business. I want him to succeed. But what happens after his business to this property?
A piece of property next to a substation, next to an auto repair shop on a major state highway.
Next to a school and 2 churches and...
Oh, the school's not on that road. The school's back on the road behind.
All the buses and the traffic turn on Murray Kittrell Road, though.
But he's not on Murray Kittrell Road. I mean, and he's not it's not a distribution center. It's 20-something trucks that are mostly on the road, a couple of there on weekends. I mean, it's not a hub. It's not a place, as I said earlier, all these trucks coming and going and all, so...
Or this business. What about the next business?
State highway, still next to a substation.
Okay, here we go. We have a motion to approve and a second, item number 16-A012. All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye. Opposed? No. Call the roll, would you please, Gail?
Rhonda Allen? No. Jim Averwater? Yes. Lee Bogle? Yes. Will Jordan? Yes. Craig Lynch? Chip Pinion? Yes. Charlotte P? No. David Jones? Yes. And Jeff Phillips? Yes, have it.
Passes. Motion to approve passes. Thank you. This will also be scheduled to be heard before the full county commission on Thursday, the 12th of January, 2017, at 6:30 p.m. right here in this room. And there'll also be another public hearing. Any old business? No. Any staff reports? Doug, you've got a few things there?
Just a couple things that I know it's getting late. I know we're tired, so I won't try to take too long. Consistent with our bylaws, we need to appoint a nominating committee for chair and vice chair for the upcoming year. We just appoint the committee today. They will make their recommendations at the day meeting next month. After speaking with Jeff about it, we asked Craig Lynch, Lee Bogle, and Chip Pinion. I've spoken with all three. They have all, emailed, I guess. I spoke to Craig, but I emailed both Chip and Lee, and all three have agreed to serve in that capacity. So I guess we just need a motion to make that official.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of that motion to appoint Craig, Lee, and Chip to the nominating committee, please say aye. Any opposition?
I just wanted to alert you to some what I call upcoming events. During our day meeting next month, we'll have our year-end report. We'll discuss kind of the things that have happened during the last year, some of the accomplishments that we've had. I'll just kind of give you a little taste. You probably haven't noticed quite as much as far as ordinance amendments and things coming your way. A lot of that's simply just because we've been so busy with our day-to-day plan review and rezoning applications and bringing things to you that we just simply haven't had time. We want to try to do better next year, but I hope nobody thinks that we're just sitting on our laurels, because we're certainly not doing that. But just wanted to make that announcement to you. There should have been a CD-ROM placed in front of you today. That is actually a CD that was done, a training session that was done for Mr. Sam Edwards last year. Part of your yearly training requirements is you have to have at least 1 hour of private property right training. Most of you in here, I don't have the schedule with me, but if you have questions, call me. Several in here have already managed to get the number of hours that you need. You still need that 1 hour of continuing education training. I've given you the CD. Just let me know that you've watched it. I promise I'm going to take your word for it because it's enthralling. Believe it, it really is. So go ahead and just watch that. David, you just got appointed. You have 12 months, so you don't have to be done by the end of the year. So you've got plenty of time. But I just wanted to make sure you take that with you. And again, just let me know at the next meeting that you watched it before the end of the year, and we'll check that off the list. So we'll do that. Finally, we do have a presentation by Ms. Katie P. She's one of our stormwater aficionados, and she just is going to discuss the county's stormwater permit. Her presentation, she promised, would last no longer than 45 minutes.
I'm going to try to make this as brief as possible. I just kind of want to let you know what's going on with the stormwater program. We actually need to reapply for our stormwater permit. It expires every 5 years, so we had one in 2010. It's renewed in 2016 for our Phase 2 stormwater permit. I have got it completed. It's pretty much, the great news is no new regulations are being implemented or passed. The program as a whole is we've met all the state requirements. As a matter of fact, we are completely compliant with the 2010 permit. Therefore, we are completely compliant with the 2016 permit that we are applying for. I have it at the front desk if you guys want to look at it. It's a lot of goals and measurable, how to milestones and things like that over the next 5 years, and what we do and how our program works. The only thing that you guys might see in the future is some of the language changed in the permit as far as how we test streams. So in the past, if it said that it was impaired because of agricultural purposes, we didn't have to test it. This year, the permit kind of reads this year that they want to focus on the source. So if it is impaired for E. coli, they want to know those levels and why. So we would have to go back and prove that it's not a failed septic system, that it is cattle. So there might be some more tests. Actually, there will be some more streams that need to be tested, a little bit more money. I am working with the Stones and the Harpeth watersheds and MTSU to work on some ways to make that economical for the county. So that will be coming up. And I went ahead and kind of looked at our ordinance, since I'm redoing all of the milestones and things, and did some brief updates. I think you guys got emailed like the few changes that I did, mainly definitions, trying to clarify some things. The new permit had some different languages for exemptions on that infiltration, made it a little bit more detailed and not just at the discretion of the county engineer. A couple more reasons why they could say that infiltration, that they were exempt from it. And that's about it. We got audited in March from TDEC, and they suggested that we put some of their actual language from their permit into our ordinance and not just mentioned by their permit. So we have in there that we had to follow all these water quality regulations, but they're not actually listed. They asked us to have them specifically listed, so I did that as well. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. Any questions?
This has to have a public hearing at the
Yes,
Board
this
of
does have a
Commissioners,
public
not here,
hearing
right?
at the full commission, so there can be discussion. I will say that the 2016 permit has been under some legal discretion. We meet the 2010 permit, so no matter what, we're completely compliant, but there has been some issues, I guess, with the 1-inch infiltration, but we implemented that in 2014, so. And I guess, do they need to make a recommendation on the ordinance, or are they good with it?
I don't think it would hurt anything if they did.
Okay, because I think this, if you guys want to make a recommendation to approve, I guess, the minor changes of the ordinance.
Can't hear you guys, I'm sorry. What did you say?
Just tell me what we had a motion to approve.
The minor changes of the ordinance that I gave you guys in an email. I'm sorry.
What, one person?
The changes that I emailed you guys to the ordinance, the minor added definitions, where the language changed. It was like impaired stream.
Thank you, Katie. Is
like
that
yes.
what your motion was, and that's what your second one? Okay.
That update was on your iPads, by the way, in case, just make sure you saw it.
No, we just changed the language. Instead of saying borrow pit, we use resource extraction now. It's the only difference.
Have a motion and a second to approve the updated changes. Everybody understand? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Katie. Is that it, Doug?
I believe it is. I just want to say, on behalf of myself and the staff, and Mike can certainly echo this if he'd like, but just want to thank you all for another year. You really do make this job as enjoyable as it can be, I guess. I do enjoy working for the county and working for you all. I just want to say how much I appreciate you all, and I hope everybody here and those who are watching have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
We had a little dinner tonight. We celebrated with our staff. The season is really a time for celebration, and that's what we had. We didn't want to leave out Josh. Josh has been a member of semi-sort of a member of this commission for a good long time, and his guidance has gotten better and better and better and better, and there's nothing we can do to Josh to fool him. So, Josh, we appreciate you being a part of us as well. Thank you. Good job. I've got our next meeting, which was scheduled for the 26th of this month, of course, has been canceled. So our next meeting will be a 6 p.m. meeting on the 9th.
Well, again, we have received no zoning applications, and so nothing was deferred to next month. So at this point, I'm thinking, unless you guys just want to get together to say hi, that we could just cancel that meeting.
We will officially cancel the meeting for the 9th, and that will make our next meeting on the 23rd, 9 a.m. meeting in the MES over in the planning office. One other announcement, Mike Cush, he was at our dinner tonight, but not at our meeting because he's attending the organizational meeting for the Citizens Advisory Committee on Solid Waste Management. So he's undertaking a new assignment, and that's where he is tonight. We wish him well, and he'll make a good addition to that advisory committee. Anybody have anything else? Thank you. We're adjourned. Merry Christmas.